Welcome back to the Speakeasy podcast. Today we are talking about anxiety, which has been a minute since we have discussed anxiety on the show. And if you know any of my story, you know that it's been a pretty overarching theme. So I think it's interesting that we haven't discussed it. And that makes me all the more excited to welcome my friend Maddie Joy Fischer onto the show today to talk about our stories of anxiety, the depths of darkness that we have both reached, but even more so, above all of it, what God has done, how He has unraveled our self reliance and our fears, how we have both experienced healing and freedom. And ultimately, what I want to do is just send back hope for people that are still in it, for individuals that are walking through the depths of anxiety. I remember when I was really in it, I could not get enough of listening to people talk about how God had used these things or what they had heard from Him or what even like what they had done to help experience victory. And I don't think that this is something we can dig ourselves out of. I think it's something that we can only rely on the Lord for. But Maddie has a really incredible story, and we kind of swapped war stories throughout the episode, but ultimately came down to how do we dig out these lies that are at the root of our anxiety and our panic, and what do we replace them with? And so whether you experience anxiety, whether you love someone that experiences anxiety, I think that this episode can be really helpful in that walk, and hopefully not just offer you hope, but truth as well. Hey, Maddie, welcome to the Speakeasy.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
I know. I am pumped to talk about anxiety, which is a weird sentence to say. Right. But we were kind of chatting before we started recording about how we have in similar that this is a prevalent theme in our lives and something that we have both walked with and struggled with. And I've seen a lot of healing and freedom in that, and I've talked a little bit about it, but I'm excited to share about that, and then also pull in your experience with that as well, because I think this is what the enemy uses to crush, I think, everybody, but we're going to talk to women specifically, women that love Jesus, is just fear. And what I think you and I have both found is that when you can get to the root, when you can get to the lies, when you can get to what you're believing and surrender it and let God do the work and join with Him in it, there is freedom available. And I know I've been in seasons where I was like, this is just it. This is just what it's going to be. And so to open us up, I would love to hear a little, or let the audience hear a little bit about your story and struggle with anxiety. And we talked about this before, but we're not talking about anxiety in oh my gosh, I was just anxious and things are just hard. That's why I was so excited to have you on and talk about it, is because you're no. We're going to really, we're going to dig in and talk about it.
Go there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My journey with anxiety, if you will, started as long as I can remember ago. I just remember being generally as a child, I was always the one who erred on the side of caution. Mm-hmm. I wasn't the most daring child by any means. And so at the same time, I was also raised in the truth. I was raised in a home that, we talked about the word of Jesus. My family modeled well for me how to stand on the word of Jesus. But I think very young, that voice of fear crept in. And I think it's really important to note, just even as we get started, that feelings are something that the Lord gave us in a healthy way, but they were never made to be our guide or our control system. And I think at a young age, unfortunately, fear took root as a control system, and I wasn't fully able to identify that. And so really all throughout childhood, into middle school, into high school, in some way, the voice of anxiety was bossing me around. And again, I knew the truth and I was doing my best with what I knew to
Yeah.
walk in the truth. But ultimately, I lived in this constant tension of I'll submit to truth here, but then I'm going to be swayed by anxiety here. And I just feel like it was this constant pull. It showed up in different ways, not doing little things that I genuinely enjoy, not just felt called to, but that just gave me life. It showed up in insecurity and fear of rejection. That's a big thing. And so, again, it was always a part of my life. Really, the big breaking moment, if you will, was coincidentally, but not coincidentally, in the thick of writing my most recent book, which was Rest and Rely, which was about combating fear and anxiety. And there were so many things that I thought I knew, but now looking back, I was saying it, but if I really took a reflection at the life I was living, fear was still calling the shots in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And it came to a breaking point where this small fear that the enemy took a foothold of really spiraled. And I just kept feeding it and I just kept feeding it. And I just kept trying to gain control because was telling me it would give me peace. And what
Mm,
happening was it led to panic, and this voice that was once promising protection and freedom actually ultimately put me in a cage. I got to a place with anxiety that I personally didn't know was possible. I had heard of it happening, but it led to a panic disorder that,
hmm.
again, I had heard of happening, but it felt hard to even grasp. And I lived in that state for about 3 months, and I was in the severe depths of it.
Yeah.
And really, the Lord has just taken me on this journey through the depths of this beautiful unraveling. Now I can call it beautiful. And
Right.
it was like, Lord, what are we doing? Like this, kind of like you talked about, it felt like, is this just my life? And I'm so thankful now, on the other side of it, for the redemptive work that the Lord has done. But I want people to know that, like, like you said, when we're talking about anxiety, I'm not just talking about this little feeling that came and went. I really got to a place that kind of, like you said, this was the control system of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. This is what's, I love the saying. It's like, you can't let it drive the bus.
Yeah,
And like when anxiety and panic and fear are driving the bus, that means that that's the direction that you are headed. That
yeah,
is that is tainting everything. It's dictating everything. Our stories are very, very similar. I unfortunately was in it for, approximately 15 times longer
yeah,
than what you were. And I think that just goes to show that this can exist on such a spectrum. There are people that struggle with it for months and they get freedom and they get healing. And there are people that struggle with it for years. And I think it's really important for people to hear that neither means that God was like with you less or more, loves you more or less. You are more or less strong. We just all have different stories and things
yeah,
take root in our lives in really different ways.
sure.
I'd also love that it's while you were writing the book about, like, if that's
Sure.
not how God works and does
Right,
things, it's
right.
just, that's happened to so many people that I know and myself personally. But what did that like actually look like? What did anxiety and panic, like, were you having panic attacks? What did it look like physically? Is it just like your mind spinning? I think like sometimes people are like, is this anxiety? Or is it like, I can remember being like, everybody doesn't feel like this.
Sure.
What do you mean?
Yeah. I think in some seasons previously, it kind of revealed itself kind of in one lane. So I would kind of feel it more just mentally, where, yeah, it was like thoughts that would spiral, or spiritually, really feeling attacked specifically on things I felt called to do, or maybe doubts and confusion about the things that I knew to be true. In this instance, kind of what it looked like in 3 months was like the height of it.
Yeah.
But this was a over a year long journey from like start to finish of, and even now, like I'm still working through this unraveling, but I'm at a
Hmm.
place that I'm like, okay, we're on our feet. I
Yeah.
talk about it. I can say I've experienced victory in it. But in this specific instance in my life, it started as like a small health concern, honestly.
I was wondering if
It's,
it was health anxiety because
yeah,
that
which
comes
has
for
been a big
people.
reoccurring theme for me.
Yeah.
And I've had little pockets again where it's kind of heightened, but never to this state. And so started around the time of August, and I just had like this little thing that came up, and
Yeah.
it wasn't going away. And it just kind of started as like, okay, the voice of anxiety was like, we need to look into this. We need to,
Mm-hmm.
and again, in a healthy fear way, yeah, we should respond if things are off, whatever that looks like. But I did the necessary things I needed to do. Things were okay. But at that point, that fear, that voice, I had given it control. I started Googling. I started asking people for that reassurance. I mean, I stayed up late at night, like, Lord, what's, and I remember God giving me this picture of anxiety in this instance started as almost like this little puppy that I brought home. And it was
Mm.
comfort and cute and like seemed harmless. What started happening though was I started feeding the puppy under the table. The
Mm-hmm.
the puppy started wanting to be fed what it was never intended to have. And I fed it and I fed it and I fed it. And the next thing I knew, the puppy wasn't a puppy. It was a full-grown, massive, aggressive dog that had taken over my
Yep.
house, the household of my mind, the household of my heart. And so I think that's why anxiety can be so tough, because sometimes it sounds like a protective friend. And
100%.
becomes this bully, and we don't know how to break free at that point. Even those of us that know the truth, once we've given it that control, it doesn't have the final say, but an unraveling does have to take place. So eventually, again, from August to kind of December that year, it built. I had ended up in the emergency room, just could not feel any sense of peace, had my first panic attack then, and then pretty much did not come out of that state of panic from December to February. Unfortunately, through that, the thing that was once promising to save my life was then telling me that I no longer wanted to be alive. I had
Mm-hmm.
never experienced that before. It was something that, again, in my logical and this in the spiritual side of me, knew the truth and did not want that thought, but it felt like I couldn't break free from it. And so, this isn't a story that I've shared a ton, but I really do feel released to say that I submitted the edits for this book in a Christian mental health facility. I
Mm.
really had to get to the state where my family was so supportive, my church was so supportive, but we had really exhausted our options
Yeah.
and really felt like I needed further help. And again, this was one of those things I never thought in a million years could be a part of my story, but just the Lord used so many things. And so again, it started as something that seemed so harmless. And then the
Yeah.
next thing I knew, I really felt trapped.
Well, and that is how anxiety starts. That
Yeah.
it is always like, I love the puppy analogy, or like a seed that you
Yeah.
plant in the ground, and then you tend and you tend and you tend, and you give it energy and you give it light and you give it food. And then it's a vine that's like, that was the analogy I always used. It's a vine that's crawled out of your house, and now it's like crushing it. And
Mhm.
it's not like a pretty flowering plant anymore. It's a vine that's trying to destroy you. And I think specifically health anxiety can be really hard for people. Like, there are so many women that I know, myself very much included, that that the thing that gets hard with these roots of anxiety is that there's these threads of truth, like what you talked about. Like, we want to be good stewards of our body, and
Yes.
we're very almost like, probably too aware of the things that can come in and harm, like the things that we're taking in, what environments we're in that are like impacting our health. We're so aware with the internet and social media of how prevalent cancer is, or this or that. And we think it really does a lot of the time come down to control. And that has been the biggest takeaway for me in my anxiety journey, is like thinking I'm in control, or even wanting to be in control, which retrospectively is like, why? I don't want to be in control, because then that means I'm in control. Like, I am not,
Really, it's impossible.
it's
Like
impossible. I'm
it
going
is
to be
an
terrible at it.
unachievable goal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And so being able to recognize that, like, no, even your own health,
Yeah.
you aren't actually in control. And I think where people struggle is that walking that fine line of like stewardship and control. And you spoke to that of like, we need to take care of ourselves. If there is something that's a red flag, then we should like get it looked at, or at least, give it our attention. But that line is razor thin, I have found, that we have to walk. And if the rest of your life isn't in submission to Christ, then you are going to pretty instantly snatch up
Yep.
whatever you can that gives you
Right.
some semblance of control.
Yeah.
And so health anxiety is a huge part of my story. And then fear of man
Yeah.
is really high up there. Fear. And again, it's funny, that one I've really been, I love that you use that term, untangling or unraveling. The
Mhm.
unraveling has been realizing that like I had this weird like I grew up in the church as well. And so I had this weird definition of humility
Yeah.
that meant taking everything everyone said about me and at least like looking at it for a second, right? That it was humility and submission for, it doesn't matter if it was like Joe Schmo, faceless stranger on the internet or somebody I trusted, that I needed to at least like look at it. And then
Yeah.
you read the Bible and it's like, don't cast your pearls before pigs. Shake
Right.
the dust off your boots and keep going. And recognizing that, like, this thing that I was constantly letting myself get wrapped up in, again, like making an excuse that it's humility, was like wrecking me and making it so that I couldn't even hear the voice of God or the voice of the
Yeah.
people who do care about and love me. And I think those two, from just conversation with friends and people online and my own life, those two drivers get really destructive because you can't control your own health and you can't control what other people say or think.
No.
And you're gonna, what I think is a really important part of this, and you've spoken to this without using the word, is hypervigilance.
Yeah.
This hyper vigilant, like this lie running all of it, that if I don't protect myself, no one will.
Yep.
Because I would say, like, with your concerns, your fears and your anxieties with your health, like, how much were you trusting God with your health?
Right.
Not at all.
No.
Like, very little.
Yeah. And I think in my mind and on paper, I got really good at saying that I trusted. Now looking back, a big thing that I've come back to is like, if I want to live an embodied peace, I have to walk out an embodied faith.
Yeah.
And I think that unintentionally, that was a reoccurring pattern all through my life. I wanted to proclaim the truth of Jesus, and I had such a desire. But praise God that He brought me to a true place of breaking point. Not that I believe that He was standing over me, inflicting this anxiety, but the roots in our lives will reveal themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
He will, in His kindness, allow that to take place so that His goodness and glory could be revealed not just to me, but through me, because I
Right.
don't want to be proclaiming something that I'm not living. And honestly, eventually, if we're proclaiming something that we're not living, it will catch up to us. And we,
100%. It absolutely, it'll catch you,
yeah,
because I think we serve a kind father that cares about the truth.
yeah,
And I think about it as a parent, like, if I'm watching my kid say something that I know that they can't back up, that their life does not reflect, I can't lovingly allow them to
yeah,
continue, especially if they're saying something about me.
right.
Like, no, 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 I want you to believe that I am good. I want you to believe that I use everything for
Yeah,
your good, and well, not my glory as a
yeah.
parent, but you know what I mean? Like, the analogy stands. And so
Mhm.
when you, I love that you shared that you ended up having to make the decision to go somewhere.
Yeah.
When that happened, you said everyone was like so supportive. Did you ever, even just throughout the process, feel like there was judgment or shame coming in?
I think, praise Jesus, not from my own family.
Yeah,
I do think there was a lack of understanding because I didn't even understand myself.
that's
What
hard.
I've
Yeah.
always been at a place again where I experienced some pretty intense anxiety, but it was always manageable. And now we were in this place where this is no longer manageable in our own capacity. And so I think there was an extent of lack of understanding and desperation, which the
Mm-hmm.
enemy really used as a point of shame to make me feel like I was a burden or I was at fault or I was being punished. Um, from the outside, I'm sure there were elements of that. I think that even the church as a whole, we have good intention a lot of the time, but we just don't know what to do when we find ourselves in a place where almost what we're seeing seems to contradict the truth of God's word. And again, I
Yeah.
was writing books and I've been on platforms and I lead worship. I mean, I'm very involved. And so I think a lot of people had to look at my life in that season and just be like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Um, I'm very thankful that no particular instance stands out where, I felt overly judged. I think people shared a lot of, again, well-intended advice that I was like,
Mm.
I'm doing this,
Yeah.
but not shifting.
Yeah.
And so that, created tension points and we had to work through, how do we protect from that? But I'm so sensitive to the fact that that's not everyone's story because some people are experiencing immense judgment and
Mm-hmm.
which is a part of like why I'm so passionate to share the story of what I walked through. Because a lot of people did say something reoccurring that was said was like, Maddie, I'm not gonna lie, like this doesn't make any sense. Like
And
you
it didn't.
sense. And so I think I had to eventually I arrived to a point. I had a lot of moments that I was, and I think that the Lord welcomes this. I was just like frustrated and upset and exhausted. And again, I'm not sleeping at this point. There were times that I couldn't eat. I was losing weight. Like
Yep.
it just felt like everything that could possibly go wrong was going wrong. And so I had my moments of God, why me? Why me? And eventually I had to arrive to the Lord just responding, like, why not you?
Mm.
I don't think anxiety is not always a result of this specific obvious sin,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a result of living in a sin infested world. And we are not eliminated from that reality
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
believers. In fact, a lot of the people that the Lord used most to reveal his glory throughout scripture found themselves in the pits, especially of mental health.
Yeah.
Example being Job and David. We talk about them a lot. We say it, and it's nice in scripture because we see the end of the story. When
Right.
we're living it, then all of a sudden the church gets weird about it. Like, no, there's something wrong with you. No, this must be punishment for something they're doing. There must be this big area of sin. And to be honest, like I looked at my life and I was like, in a lot of ways, I feel more than ever like I'm living in obedience. Now, if we look under the surface, there was a root of fear being fed. That
Mm-hmm.
is a result of sin.
Right.
It wasn't like this intentional, I'm going against God, but it was like there is an area that if we keep going on feeding this, it's going to destroy, you know, my identity as a daughter in Christ, what he's called me to, my view of him. So all of that to say, there were definitely lack of understanding in some
Yeah.
areas, but ultimately, I'm thankful for the support of
Yeah.
my
I
community.
definitely think if you haven't walked through it, the best thing you can do is just be there,
Yes.
and like it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't want you to get it. I don't want you to
No.
understand, like I don't wish the my story of anxiety, and I'm sure you feel the same on anyone.
No.
I don't wish like the disobedience. I don't wish the unraveling, but if I was gonna walk through it, I'm gonna like
Yeah.
use it for the glory of God, and I'm going to lean into what he's doing with it. But I think for the people, like it is still at my age so wild to me to meet people that are like, I've never really struggled with anxiety. I'm like, I love that for you.
Yay. Yeah.
How tell like now I'm like, I want to
Yes.
hear your story. What does that even look like? And I think that everyone has, when I say that, everyone has experienced anxiety. That is a human feeling. But what you and I are talking about is when it like takes over, when it becomes like the big aggressive dog or it takes over the house. And I think for the people that are listening to the two of us talk about this and they're just like, I cannot relate. We love that for you.
Yes.
And I think one of the best things that anybody ever did for me that didn't understand was say that,
Yeah.
was say, I do not understand, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Like, I will be here the best that I can. I will love you. I will feed you if you can eat. I will sit with you while you cry.
Yeah.
But I think just leading with, like, this is foreign to me, but I want to love you through it
Yeah.
is one of the kindest things you can give someone. I'd prefer that over you trying to like bend yourself into a shape that you can't fit. You know what I mean? That like it's not, I don't want you to get it. Like I said, I don't
Yeah.
want you to understand. Just tell me you don't understand and we
Right.
can move forward. But you also mentioned feeling like a burden. And I
Mhm.
think that like when you said it, I felt it in my chest. Like, oh man, I have felt like such a burden when you're having the panic attacks or you can't come out of the panic attacks. Or I mean, I've shared pretty openly. Like there was a season, it was like 2021, where I like half jokingly, not jokingly will be like, I probably should have gone
Yeah.
somewhere and gotten help. We really just didn't even like know that was an option or,
A lot of resources.
right. Don't necessarily live in an area where there's a lot of those resources. But I mean, bed bound for
Yeah.
months, same as you, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. And I was a mother. I couldn't mother. My parents had to come stay with us. I remember my parents saying I needed more help in that season than I did after I'd had a C-section, which
Right.
is a pretty, grueling recovery.
Mhm.
And God used me coming to the actual end of myself. Like that truly was the end of myself. I couldn't get myself to eat. That's the most basic human function,
Yeah.
to completely rebuild my life, to completely restart my life. And I know so many people with similar stories where, like rock bottom is the foundation that God rebuilt my life on. Something we can all agree on is that one of the least fun parts of being an adult is dealing with health insurance. The system is overpriced, it is overcomplicated, and it is a mess. And it is a system that they are counting on you not even thinking you have the option to opt out of. But it turns out you do. Crowd Health is an insurance alternative that is busting the system wide open. When you sign up, you get access to so much. You get a team of people that will negotiate your health bills, low cost prescriptions, low cost lab testing, as well as a database of low cost, high quality doctors that are vetted by Crowd Health. And so the way it works is if something major happens, you pay the first 500 and then the crowd steps up and covers the rest, and you do the same for other people so you know where your money is going and it's to actually help people. So this open enrollment, you can take your power back. You can join Crowd Health to get started today for $99 for your first 3 months by using the code SPEAKEASY at joincrowdhealth.com. That's joincrowdhealth.com, code SPEAKEASY. Crowd Health is not insurance, but this is how you can take your power back. And so for the people that are listening that are there,
Yeah.
that feel like there's nowhere lower to go, that things cannot get worse, the
Mhm.
best news is that you serve a God that uses everything,
Yeah.
that uses your fear, your control, your perfectionism, your health, whatever it is. Like he will use this.
Yeah.
You have to surrender it.
Yep.
You have to. And that's not easy
No.
because you're so far into this cycle. And what I found to be the most helpful was to identify the lies
Yep.
and root them out and replace them with truth. And I would literally see it. Like I used the analogy of the seed earlier. I'm very visual, especially in the way that like God communicates with me. And I would have this visual of like the tree that was
Mhm.
the lie, and like you got to get the roots out, which is not just like cut the tree down. Like you have to dig that tree out. Well, then now you can't leave this gaping hole in your yard.
Right.
You've got to replace it with something. So we replace it with truth. And so I thought it would be helpful to kind of like walk that out for people through a couple of things, through a couple of lies. The first one that comes to mind for me is that I am not safe.
Mm.
You are not safe. That safety is like one of our most basic human needs from childhood, right? From infancy. We want to feel safe.
Mm.
And it applies to what you were saying, right? Like, can you speak to how
Yeah.
in your health you didn't feel safe?
Yeah. Yeah. I think this one is it's tough. What comes to mind, and again, it's hard to make these things not sound like a cliche. And I also understand being in that position and being like, ugh, easy to say.
Yeah. But
It
we're
is.
not. Neither of us
No,
are just saying it. Like,
no,
we've both lived
no.
it.
Right. What comes to mind is the fact that our ultimate safe place to land is in the sovereignty of God and not in our circumstances or our feelings. And I think that something that was so helpful for me and helps me not to abandon, because I love that you use the analogy of rebuild. A picture that the Lord kind of gave me in my journey was like I had built this house all throughout my life over time, made up of all of these things, a lot of the truth, but some lies had
Mm-hmm.
made their way in. Whenever I came to my breaking point, actually physically in our community, there was a tornado that took out a lot of houses in the area. In my life, that's what it felt like this
Yeah.
house that I had built,
Exactly. That's like I had built is the
right?
important line there.
It was gone.
Yeah.
There was nothing left.
But like, thank God.
Thank the Lord. The only thing that stood was the foundation that He was. And
Yeah.
I remember being in counseling actually when I came home, because I had to go out of state for to
Mm-hmm.
get where I needed to go. I came home and I was better, but things were still not great.
Yeah.
And I remember my counselor saying, because I was like, the house is gone. Like, I have to rebuild. I have to rebuild. I have to rebuild. And she was like, I'll never forget. She was like, before we rebuild, we have to pick up the mess of what was. Otherwise, you're going to have this really pretty house, but there's just going to be trash everywhere.
Yep.
And the trash was the lies. One of those being like, I am not safe. And so I have to spend my life striving for this security
Yeah.
in every way. And what we want so often is for the circumstance to to be like this clean, put together thing in order to feel secure. The reality is, our safe place to land is in the sovereignty of God. And He says all throughout His word, like, what I say I will do, I will accomplish. Like,
Yeah.
it's been determined. That is, and so when I don't feel safe, when my circumstances seem to contradict the truth of what I know to be true about God, I have to come back to I am secure in His
Yeah.
sovereignty, not
Yeah.
my circumstances, not how I feel, not all the things that change around me, but in the one who has proven Himself faithful
Yeah.
generation after generation after generation. And so I would say, with the security promise, instead of maybe writing all the things that I want God to change, I write down the unchanging truth of who He is, even if it doesn't shift how I feel in the,
Yeah.
and I keep coming back to that. It's not always this, more often than not, it's not this immediate healing. It's
No. Yeah.
saying, let's rebuild, and it's going to be messy and ugly. But yeah, I have to come back a lot to my ultimate promise and landing place is in the sovereignty of God. And that's in that sovereignty is the promise of His love for me. Even
Yeah.
when something that's going on feels loving.
Yeah. Well, and what you just said about like this isn't like instant. It's so wild to me how we as humans think that like something can take us years to get to, and we think we're going to get over it in a month. And I
Right.
am the queen of that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I've been hustling and performing for safety
Right.
and security for 10 years. It's been
Yeah.
5 months. Why am I not over it yet? Like, that's just like, yes, God can do miracles
Yes.
100%, and he can take the scales off of our eyes and he can give us revelation 100%. But he also moves slow with us because
Yeah.
he knows how fragile we are and how
Yeah.
human we are.
And sometimes that's better. Like, He's
I
gonna take
think
us
so.
on the better. I remember one night, like coming, it was also when I came home and I had like a good stretch of feeling a lot of lift. And then one day I had a commitment like that evening, and like like came
Yep.
back and here I go. I'm like, oh no, are we going back? Are we going back? I remember crying out, like I literally said out loud, Lord, why can't healing be linear? Like I'm
Yes.
sick of this. And I
Yep.
will never forget, like not audibly hearing his voice, but in how he speaks to me. And I had not felt like I heard the voice of God in a long time.
Yeah.
It's hard. He just said, because there's so much to be revealed about me in the process.
Come on. Oh, that's good.
And not only to be revealed to me, but as a result through my life
Amen.
and
Yeah.
out that journey. So I think that's this is a little bit of a rabbit trail, but to the person that finds themselves frustrated right now, going like, the Lord is being mean, not healing me complete, like immediately. I think we have to ask, Lord, what might you be wanting to reveal in this process
Yep.
and arriving to a place? And this might take time. If you're in the height of it, you might not be able to see it this way, but He will bring you to a place where you actually see that the process of healing in your life was actually the better way.
100%. That he will take us through it. And
Yeah.
we want him to take us around it.
Yeah.
And he will like put his arm around us and be like, all right, like if we don't go through,
Yeah.
then clearly in this conversation, your girl loves an analogy, but like if you don't go through the scary woods, then
Yeah.
the woods are always scary.
Right.
If you go around them, you will never face it. And so
Right.
there have been so many things, not even just anxiety, but there have been so many things where God's like, I get it. I get that you would rather take the easier road, but like we've got to walk through it. And I love what you said about like listing like the promises of God. Another thing that I do that even I think personalizes that further is I keep a running note in my phone
Yeah.
of the like clear hand of God in my life when he took something that should have been disastrous and made it even just like less disastrous,
Yeah.
or even like did a miracle and redeemed it, or all of these things where I made horrifically disobedient sinful
Right.
decisions and he saved my life and he
Right.
saved, kept it intact. And like I it's titled I refuse to have spiritual amnesia, because I
Yeah.
think so many of us do. Life is so busy, it's so noisy, it's throwing so much at us
Yeah.
that we like like we forget to build these Ebenezers, these altars to what he has done, so that we can go, oh, okay, I'm freaking out that we're not going to be able to afford this.
Right.
First of all, maybe we don't need to afford it.
Right.
But second of all, think of all the times where God showed up. And if
Yeah.
he is who he says he is, he's going to be, if he is who he has been since the beginning, is he
Right.
not still also who he's always been, just in my minuscule
Yeah.
life? And so I think that you're not safe lie that causes that hypervigilance, that constant scanning. If I relax, then I'm going to like, that was my big thing. If I rest, if I relax, I'm going to miss the threat
Right.
and it's going to come in and it's going to blindside me and it's going to take me out.
Yeah.
Is God who he said he is? Is he, like you said, the safest place to land? Has he not kept me safe when the things that I was scanning for, I still missed something because I'm
Right.
human? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think that my safety, like something I would have to repeat to myself all the time, my safety is not in my vigilance, it is in the Lord.
Yeah.
My safety is not in my vigilance, it is in the Lord. And so that's like the tree is I'm not safe. You rip it out and you replace it with, and I think it's hard for people sometimes to like actually believe that the Lord cares, that he sees. You're like, and I'm not saying this to diminish it for yourself, but like your little health issue.
Yeah.
I think that like we think he doesn't care, he doesn't see it. And that's how we spin into control and fear, when it's like, I told a story on my stories the other day that we were going to a Mardi Gras ball
Yeah.
and my dress didn't come in on time. And
Mm.
I'm day before, I'm in tears in the JC Penney's dressing room because I like can't find, I'm very curvy and short and I
Worst
can't,
feeling.
it's the
Worst
worst feeling.
feeling.
I can't find anything. I'm spinning out. I end up like, I get in the car to go to a different store and I prayed. Like I sat in the parking lot and I was like, Jesus, I know that there are wars and tragedies
Sure.
and there are more important things in my life that I'm actively talking about. But like, I just found a dress, and girl, I found the
Yeah.
dress looked like it was poured onto my body when I wore it, and so it's like, if he cares about those things,
Yeah.
then he is truly our safety.
Yeah.
Um, but I think a lie that like hitches its wagon to that one is that I'm not going to be able to handle what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be able to handle it. Like, if your health concern had actually come to fruition, did you feel like that was playing in there as well?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I can relate so much to like I got to a point where I spent my life just bracing for impact. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
would not enjoy. I didn't even have, not just physically, like I didn't have an appetite for anything good because I was always expecting the worst.
Even when things were good. Like,
Yes.
now I'm not enjoying it when things are good.
Yeah, and I think I ultimately I was able to identify like one of the ultimate root fears in my life was this fear of being disappointed by God.
Mm,
Because I had been disappointed by multiple, not family, but close friends. Just
yeah.
I walked through a really hard friendship thing where like just someone that I thought that would be there forever, it's just like total blindside.
I
And that
get that.
there was another season in my life where my family made like a huge move. And it felt kind of throughout my life, I could identify these times where it just felt like the rug was ripped out from under me. And I never really reconciled that. I think going back to the what you were talking about a little bit ago is like the key to experience healing from anxiety is not avoidance. And we
Mm,
avoid it because we have this ultimate fear, even if we're proclaiming something else, that it might have more power than God.
come on. That's good.
Honest. And we don't want to say that. Like I remember
No.
it's like it was scary to say that because if I acknowledge that, does that mean I'm abandoning God? Does that mean that but I had to identify this ultimate fear. I am afraid I'm going to be disappointed by God. And if he disappoints me, that ultimately means that it all falls on me. And then what if I can't handle it?
Yeah.
Then everything is a lot. Everything that I know, not just everything that I know, but everything that I've told people
Yeah.
no longer stands. And then what? And so if I really look at all of it, I thought that the ultimate fear was like, death or something being
Hmm.
severely off my health, but it was actually the spinning out of my faith that was my fear. It was a
Yes.
feeling of being abandoned by God and tapping out from
Yeah.
everything and not knowing where to go. And so I think the you have to almost start with a truth on that
Mm,
there actually might be things that I can't handle
there will be.
where the beauty of that we have to come back to the scripture that talks about his strength and his glory being revealed in our weakness. Therefore I will boast
Yeah.
all the more gladly in my weakness. We can spin that on its head. We can turn the enemy's lie back on himself. When I say I acknowledge that I can't handle that,
Yep.
that's where God does his best work, because
Come on.
came to a place where I couldn't handle it. My ultimate fear, even talking about it, like the Lord's revealing it, my ultimate fear came true.
Right.
It, I could not handle it. I came to the end of myself. I had nothing left to give, and that was my fear. What if I have nothing to offer? And in that place, the Lord met me. And in my deepest unraveling, the Lord was able to build a true and firm faith that
Mm,
I wanted and I desired so deeply before. And I didn't even realize I didn't have it, but I didn't.
yeah. That you don't even know until you're facing it and going, we have reached that point. I have reached the end of myself. And I think to your point, I had a very similar experience where like, oh, this is the darkest depth of my fear, because I referenced the like spiritual amnesia earlier. I am forgetful. I am
Yeah.
a wanderer. And so I forget that like the whole, not the whole point, but a huge part of the point of life with Jesus is that it's not all sitting on our shoulders, that it's not all up for us, that we are yoked with him, that
Yep.
don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will worry about itself. Like that today has enough. And how many of us are spending all of our time spinning out about all these things. And I imagine God as a good father sitting there going,
Yeah.
you're missing it. You're missing it. You're missing that I am the one that
Yeah.
holds it all together, that I am the one that knows already how that's going to go. But I think there is something so beautiful,
Mm.
which sounds wild, but it's true. There is something beautiful about reaching the bottom,
Yep.
about hitting it and being like, I mean, I know exactly what you're saying. I've got nothing. And I honestly I got there a little bit last year. Last year was a really
Yeah.
hard year for our family. And I reached this point where I was like,
Mm.
I can't keep all the plates spinning. I can't do all of the things that everyone needs me to do. And that was where I had this really cool vision of like me holding the world, and
Yeah.
it was heavy, like Atlas style. And it was like something floated out of the air and landed on top of the globe, and I boom, like I hit my face. Well, when
Yeah.
I hit my face, that globe rolled off.
Yeah.
I couldn't hold it anymore. And I remember Jesus kind of getting down in the dirt and being like, this is where I want you,
Yeah.
in front of me, in surrender, not trying to hold it all together because you can't. And I think that that's a really necessary word, especially for the like high functioning
Yeah.
individuals. I love that about myself. I'd be a liar and a half if I wasn't like, I love that your girl can get it done. I
Yeah.
love that I can like start with nothing and put something together.
Mm.
But that is an exhausting way to live when you think that that's what makes you worthy.
Yeah.
When you think that that's why everything has gone the way it has, is because you're so high functioning and capable. Like, no, babe. The creator of everything has been working alongside you. You have just been rejecting the goodness of his yoke and of his hand and of him letting him hold the weight. And so I don't have to control everything. I
Yeah.
don't have to carry it all. And that, it really genuinely, I love that you've used that word. It is an unraveling. It is an unraveling of everything you think you know about yourself, of
Mhm.
everything you think you know about God, about control, about how we function. And if we don't get those roots out, gosh, like I, lovingly, I look at people significantly older than me that still live this way. And it's like, gosh, I don't want to miss these days. I don't. And so if this is what it takes, if
Yep.
the unraveling is what it takes, then like, so be it.
Yeah.
So be it. And I think it's important that like, and you made this point earlier, like, this is a battle.
Yeah.
And that's another really big part of it that I think gets missed, is like your mind is a battlefield. And if you are not taking care of it, if you are not engaging with it, then you are easy prey, my friend. Like, you know, I don't know when you were in that season what it looked like, but I look back at mine, and this isn't to like bring in more shame. This isn't
Oh,
like condemnation, but I was not taking care of myself
right.
physically, mentally, spiritually, even there was some lack. And so I can look back and see how like I had a bit of a target on my back.
Sure.
I think that like that's why we have Ephesians 6. Like,
Yeah.
this is a battle. Now, it's not a battle that we fight on our own. And it's really easy
Right.
to like slip
Sure.
into that like warrior mentality and be like, I've got to like do it myself. But if
Mm.
you don't armor up,
Right.
then when God's like, hey, we're gonna take this lie on, then you're like, oh wait, where's
Yeah.
my stuff?
Yeah. Yeah.
When you were like what did that look like when you were going in versus, or not even, we've talked a good bit about going into that season. I wanted to kind of close out with like what
Yeah.
it's looked like coming out of it. Like, were there moments that were just breakthrough, or
Mhm.
has it been this like plodding through it? I think it's usually both.
Yeah, it's been a mix. I can definitely identify moments that were like bigger breakthrough moments, but I think that's really where I had put my hope. And so I think,
Mm,
again, in his kindness, it more felt like a season of silence from God. And that felt even more frustrating because it was like, not only are you allowing me to walk through this excruciatingly painful thing, but you're not even going to say anything or give me like just these, because even before that, like friends would always be like, the Lord speaks to you so profoundly, or like he would give me just these crazy things. And there was none of that.
Yeah.
For the thick of the really hard, again, all he was doing was sustaining me. I mean, I can't see the full picture. And now I'm like, praise the Lord, like that was enough. That's what I needed. Um, so it was more trudging through, but I can look at little moments. There was a moment that I remember when I was away that a lady just pulled me aside, one of the counselors, and she said, I just want you to know this is not forever.
Mm.
The Lord will not waste an ounce of it. And just these little things that I held on to, she said, I know you don't have the faith to see it right now, but I will see it for you. Um, Again, even when I came home, I was there for a month whenever I went away from actually I it was February 25th, so I'm almost coming from
Oh,
a
wow.
year of like my worst day. And I was there for a month. And again, coming home, it was still really tough. I was like, I wanted it. My prayer so much was, Lord, just take this away.
Yep. Yep.
Now, even though I don't want to relive it and I wouldn't wish it for anyone, it's like my greatest treasure has come from that
Isn't
season.
that wild?
And so I don't know, all that to say, I think when I came home, it was a continual, I think I realized I had this revelation that coming to the end of myself really was the key to freedom.
Hmm.
And so I yielded. Like it just was when I came home and I was still so frustrated, like, Lord, you're not lifting it. Lord, you're not lifting it. I just chose to acknowledge that he was with me. And I
Yeah.
I made this declaration, like, as long as you're with me, I can keep going. I do remember, so I came home March. A a one of my like first big breakthrough moments didn't even come till all the way September later that year. Again, things were better, becoming
Yeah.
manageable. The Lord was steadily bringing lift, but I was supposed to go to a conference and my sleep still wasn't the best. It was better, but it wasn't the best. But I had got myself down to a routine. So at that point, deviating from that routine, flying, I don't like flying.
Yeah.
All these things that play. And I really felt like I was supposed to go, like it was clear. And so I took a step of faith to go, and I felt like the Lord had encountered me so personally and individually in a room of thousands. It was like for the first time in a long time, I was like, Lord, I knew you were there. Like I feel you again. Like there is
Yeah.
color coming back into my life. And I know I'm not just gonna be a word that I clung to that the Lord did promise was restoration. I
Hmm.
wanted to just go back to the way things were in my understanding. The Lord wanted better. It was
Exactly.
not just going to take you back, it's going to be better than it was before. And so that night was a big breakthrough. When I came home, I experienced an immense amount of lift after taking that obedient step. And I feel like
Yeah.
at that point, I've been released to like, okay, we're on our feet. But again,
Yeah.
mostly it was a journey. It was a
Yeah.
trudging. It was a clinging. It was a wrestling. But many little pockets again where I
Yeah.
can say like, wow, this is where the greatest treasure of my life has been
Yeah.
gathered.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think when people ask me about like, I'll get DMs like, "Oh, I feel like you haven't talked about anxiety a long time. Like, does that mean it's just been way better? And how did you do that?" And I'm like, how much time do you have? Because this is a 15 plus year journey. And we
right,
could talk about the health changes that I had to make,
right.
that like these things that I was putting in my body and exposing myself to
Mhm.
were like, I cannot consume caffeine in any form. I will have a panic attack, even, and I've tested it a couple of times. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's just a no, because I don't even want to like welcome that in. I have to move my body all like, so we can talk about that. We can talk about everything that we've talked about, and growing in faith and in understanding and in ripping it, all these things that I thought I knew down so that I could get to. There was a season where literally all I heard from God, kind of like you, it was silent, except,
Mm,
do you trust me?
yeah.
I'd I'd do one of those prayers, and I'd sit there but do you trust me?
Yeah.
And that was frustrating, honestly. Like it gets to the point where you're like, I mean, obviously not. Clearly I
Yeah.
don't. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so there's, the seasons where I didn't want to open my Bible. And then
Yeah.
there's the seasons where I couldn't do anything but open my Bible. And there's medication and there's supplements. I mean, it's such a layered and long story. And even if your story is a year and a half long, there's so much to it. And I think we can show up to these conversations and really want a formula. And we can really want people to tell us, like, this is what I did, and I got free from anxiety. And I can tell you all of the things. And there is so much I think you and I have said that applies universally, that anyone could use in their journey with anxiety. And it would hopefully at least help them like turn a corner. But at the
Mhm.
end of the day, like your healing is not going to be linear and it's not going to look like mine. And God's going to use different things and people and stories
Yeah.
if you will just surrender to it.
Yeah.
Let him take you where he's taking you. Let him show you what he's showing you and undo what he's undoing. I really do believe, and this is going to be, there are going to be some people this might make mad. I really do think he has healing for everyone. I really do. I really do. Now, we have to define our terms really quick. I don't mean that you will never experience anxiety again. It's a
No.
human emotion. It is something that almost everyone in scripture
Yeah.
experienced. But I do think that he has freedom for the people where it runs your life,
Yeah.
because that's what he came that we may have life abundantly. And anybody who's experienced it knows, like, this ain't it. This is not abundance,
No.
And so I just wanted to close on that note that, like, while it may not look like Maddie's story or like my story, he is still writing yours.
Yes.
And I think that you and I both would come into agreement that at the end of the day, surrender
Yeah.
was what was required of us.
Yeah, I agree. The scripture that comes to mind, I was thinking yesterday, is Isaiah 26:3, that talks about you will keep in perfect peace.
Perfect peace.
It's you, the mind who's fixed on you. The thing about trust with Jesus is that the adventure looks different for everyone, but
Yeah.
that is the formula.
Yeah.
Trust is the formula, surrender is the formula. One thing that I would love to end on is just something that another mentor said to me that I think echoes what you were saying so much. I remember her looking at me when I was kind of processing after standing on my feet, just all that had happened. Still at times going, okay, Lord, like, did it have to be that? But I remember she just said, like, Maddie, there's no room for self-preservation in the gospel.
Come
And he
on.
will take whatever means necessary to bring us to a place where we live in awareness of our need for him and where everything in our lives points to his glory. And I echo what you said, like, now being on the other side of it, again, peace is not the absence of anxiety. It's walking in the promise of his presence, being led by the promise of his presence, regardless of what we walk through. Maybe it's not anxiety for someone. But my response now is so be it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So be it. What is God going to do with it? I love this. Thank you for taking the time to share about something that is, it's hard to talk about and it's vulnerable. Where can people get your book?
From my understanding, anywhere books are sold.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, you can get it right on Baker's website, Amazon, Walmart, Target.
Rest and rely, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Maddie, thank you for your time. I loved this.
Thank you so much. It was amazing.